Hello, BookTube. Well, it's another library tour. This is the 6th bookshelf of the tall east wall bookcase. And once again, we have no transverse books. I don't quite know why that is. Most of the bookshelves in this room have lots of transverse books, but the last couple of shelves, no. So we'll go straight on to the books, starting with a popular natural history classic. This is The Life of Mammals by David Attenborough, and I love it. I know that David Attenborough has tons and tons, millions and millions of fans of his incredible nature documentaries, but I actually am a big fan of his books as well, which explains The Life of Mammals, and also this next one, Life on Earth, which is probably, well, it won't be my favorite one, because that would be The Life of Birds, which is somewhere here in this room, and should obviously be with these two, but Life on Earth is still really, really good. What an introduction to popular natural history and biology. And then we have, this is Edward O. Wilson's The Diversity of Life, his profusely illustrated book about natural history and evolution in the natural sciences. Just an amazing, just general, very lucidly written approach to the whole subject. And not the only one on this shelf either. Life on Earth is also very good, Diversity of Life, and we have one other to go. But next, we turn from biology to the whole world, to God's plenty, to my beloved Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. This is the Neville Coghill translation in a big trade paperback that Penguin did. It's not a very solid trade paperback, doesn't have the floppy binding that Penguin usually does, but it's heavily illustrated all throughout with period things. Also, there's some color in here, and I like that. I just I don't need another Canterbury Tales. I don't even need another Neville Coghill, but I love these larger size penguins. I just have a sweet tooth for them. And this thing as well, a larger size illustrated classic, a version of something that I have in many different editions. This is The Lives of the Caesars by Suetonius. This is the translation by Robert Graves, which is idiosyncratic. not probably the translation that you want to start with. But this has, in addition to his translation, it's full of pictures, which is really nice. There are times when I feel like a classic and I want them to be that way. I want it to be a big old-fashioned production number, and that explains a lot of the classics that I have in this room. There, I have the no frills, bare bones paperback reprints in this room as well, but also elsewhere. But the ones that have pride of place on the shelf are often nice editions, nice illustrated editions. I think we saw that with Seven Pillars of Wisdom, right? Nice big edition. Then we have something that's very recent. This is Otto Penzler's The Big Book of Sherlock Holmes Stories. We saw, I think, The Big Book of Jack the Ripper. I love these big book series. I absolutely love them. Now that I can request them, I don't think there'll be any that I won't request. And review as well. I absolutely adore the Sherlock Holmes canon. Those of you who have not read it must repair that fact right away. But I also love Holmes pastiche stories. Absolutely love them. So it was a natural volume for me. Then we have a work of history. Not completely sure what it's doing here. There are works of history I like better that are not in this room, so I might have to change that. But this is Frederick Morton and Nervous Splendor. This is Vienna on the eve of World War I. I think one of the reasons I like this paperback is because there's no falderall. It's just the book, the title, and that's it. So you get the lovely art all the way on the wraparound. I often wish that more books did that, even though when I wish that, the thing that I am criticizing is my own profession. So it's a little iffy there. But I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it on the shelf for now. I have been doing a lot of rearranging of the books in this room, thanks to this library tour, which some of you have been asking, there's still a long way to go. We're not nearly done, even with this room, much less the rest of the place. Next, we have a big illustrated classic. This is something I've shown on this channel before. It's the University of California Press edition of Moby Dick, with full-page illustrations and spot illustrations throughout by Barry Moser. So you get the little spot illustrations that show you the blowhole or the flensing knife or whatever piece of terminology Melville is talking about. But you also get, let me see if I can find one, you also get the bigger illustrations. So now on this channel we've seen two illustrated Moby Dicks. There's this one, and there's the Rockwell Kent one that was Modern Library. Well, no, I'm not turning up a full page one. But anyway, this is a great Moby Dick to have, especially if you're intent on doing what I often tell first-time readers of Moby Dick not to do. If you're intent on reading the whole thing, if you're intent on reading all of the expositional chapters on cetology and whaling and the craft of whaling and the equipment of whaling and whatnot, then this is the book, the edition of Moby Dick to get. It's not only beautiful, but it's very helpful, because Barry Moser goes out of his way to draw every one of those things. That's very helpful if you don't know a marlin spike. You're going to want to know what it looks like. Then we have an old classic. This is The Lost Woods by Edwin Way Teale. He's a great naturalist that I just love his work. And this is is an account of deep woods all over his travels, and it's full of his beautiful high-definition black and white photos. This is from, oh God, this is almost a century old. When is this from? 1946. And Teale, he's most famous for a quartet of books that he did where he follows the year through the seasons. So you have following winter. He follows winter in one book, the autumn, the summer, the spring. And he did a bunch of other books, including a lovely memoir called Dune Boy that I would love to find. If I could find a copy of that, it'll show up at the Brattle, but I'd be very happy to, because it was really nice. I love all of his stuff. So when I find it, a nice old volume like this at the Brattle, I grab it because I know that I'm going to be rereading it. I love rereading his work. Then we move on to this is a rather formidable thing. It's a big textbook, but I actually found it very readable and very good. It's gigantic though. It's Evolution. The subtitle is The First 4 Billion Years, and the size of it proves that. And it's just that. It's a gigantic overview of the entire discipline of evolutionary biology and paleontology. And I don't know, maybe it's the uber geek in me, but I just love it. I read it from cover to cover when I was reviewing it. Since then, I have gone back to it many times, not to read it cover to cover. I've never done that a second time, but to go back to specific things, to go back to the chapters on phylogeny or convergent evolution or stuff like that. I've gone back to those many, many times. Makes me wish that I had kept my hardcover. Harvard University Press sent me the galley of this, and then they sent me the hardcover, and then they sent me the paperback, which is this. But God knows what happened to my paperback. I don't have it, and I wish I did. And the same thing applies very much so to this next book. This is the World Poetry book from Norton, and it's just an anthology. It's Catherine Washburn, John Major, and the overseeing editor was Clifton Fadiman, and it's fantastic. It's I won't say it's my favorite poetry anthology, because of course that's the Oxford Book of English Verse, but it's my second favorite poetry anthology. And I've reinforced this trade paperback, but I use it all the time. I go to it all the time. It has survived when almost all my other poetry anthologies have gone. And I just keep waiting. Someday at the Brattle, I will find the big hardcover of this with a dust jacket. That would be grand. Then we have work of relatively contemporary nonfiction, something of a rarity here in this room, but I couldn't not have it here, and it's this. It's Tribes with Flags by Charlie Glass, and as anybody who might know him in real life will attest, it's perfectly understandable, predictable that he would have a picture of himself on the cover, deep in contemplation. But nevertheless, this is a fantastic book about the Middle East. He really, really knows the subject, and he knows how to write. Then we have another book that I am waiting patiently to find in hardcover. I had it. I got rid of it. It's great. It's The Ancestor's Tale by Richard Dawkins. This is his big, least contentious book. It's his least contentious popular book, where he's not attacking organized religion, first of all, and he's also not laying out all the miracles of evolutionary history as a means of attacking organized religion. So there's no attacking in this book at all. Instead, it's just an encyclopedia of wonders. There isn't a single page that doesn't open your mind to something. Just amazing. It actually, there's a little bit of an evolutionary sub-theme going on this shelf, and this, I cannot recommend it high enough. And unlike a lot of these other books that I've shown you, The Ancestor's Tale you will see at your local used bookstore or even at your library. If you're at all intrigued, I highly recommend it. Then the next one is a 20th century work of a classic of 20th century philosophy, although it's so contested that you won't always find people who will say that. It's an extremely controversial book even now. It's Animal Liberation by Peter Singer, in which he re-examines mankind's relationship with non-human animals in ways that are absolutely paradigm shifting. Those of us who grew up with animals, who in fact raised by them, knew a lot of the stuff that he writes before this book appeared. But this book codifies it in straightforward, extremely good, strong prose. It's the type of book that can ostracize an author, and it largely did ostracize him. But nevertheless, it's an unanswerable philosophical case. And that ought to recommend it right there. If you're interested in animal rights, or if you're a vegan, you have to read this book. It's the foundation work of the 20th century iteration of everything that you are fascinated with. So find a copy. It's not hard. It's had a long print history, and read it. And then we get to the last book, which really ought to be over on the Books About Books and Literary Criticism shelf. This is No Other Book, collection of pieces by the late Randall Jarrell. And that's, I don't know if you can see very clearly, but that's his smiling face superimposed behind the cover. This is just collected essays, some reviews, a few ruminations. I can't recommend Randall Jarrell highly enough. If he's an author I wish had wrote more. I wish he had lived longer. And you don't have to read much of his stuff to see why. he's great, especially writing about poetry, but also writing about other things. If you can find, if you're at your used bookstore, if you have one, or the library, or under a library loan or whatever, if you're interested in poetry criticism, find one of his works of collected reviews that he did on poetry. You'll see why he was both loved and feared by working poets. And that's it. That is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is the sixth. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, that is the sixth bookshelf of the tall east wall bookcase. As we slowly get towards the end, we have 2 more shelves of this bookcase to go, and then we're done with a very large bookshelf. So your patience has been very admirable. So we'll move on next time, and I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.